right, after we finished with Virabhadrasana, now begins the seated postures of the primary series, beginning with Dandasana. So from downward dog, on an inhale, we'll come through to a seated position. And it's a very simple posture. It looks very easy, and it is, but there's a lot going on. So this prepares us for all the forward folding. The legs come together, and so we essentially zip the midline up. The feet are rolling in on each other, so the big toe mounds are together as if we were kind of pinching something there. The top of the leg is engaged, or the quadricep. You can begin to feel that. As the kneecap were to lift, you know you're engaging the top of the leg, and the extreme version is maybe the heels lift up off the floor. You don't have to do it quite that much, but that lets you know that you're being active. So you sense the sit bones in the bottom plugging into the mat, and while that's engaged in this downward push, you're lifting up through the top of the head simultaneously, so the spine is growing straighter and longer. You want the hands down by the sides so that you have neutral shoulders, not too far back, not too far rounded forward, and the chin tucks just slightly and comes down to the sternum. The drishti is at the tip of the nose, and we think about cleaning the lines on the X and Y axis essentially. So as we stay here for 5 breaths, the legs are becoming straighter and the spine is growing, becoming taller. And we don't want to try so hard that it begins to disrupt the breath. So we're staying active, yet the breath is staying smooth in and out, the inhales balancing with exhales. And so in this lifted chest position, we segue right to the next asana, Paschimottanasana. On an inhale, you would keep the torso lifted, legs active, reach for the big toes. If the hamstrings are really tight, you may not be able to grab the big toes yet, and that would just come with time. In the meantime, you would bend the knees, and this helps to allow the pelvis to spill forward so the torso can begin to come forward rather than being rounded in the low back and the stretch going all into the back. So as you lift up, come forward and then down, you're bringing your ribs to the top of the legs. The neck can stay relaxed. The gaze is towards the feet, but not so much that you have tension here in the neck. So if you can forward fold very deeply, maybe you're just beginning to see the ankle crease and not really the whole foot, and that's fine. So the breath is just flowing in and out. We stay for 5 here, making sure that there's not too much tension in the shoulder girdle. After 5 breaths, you'll inhale, come back up until the arms are straight. Exhale there, and then we'll do a deeper version. So on the next inhale, set the hands a little deeper. And that might be that your hands are on your shins and you go slightly closer to the foot with bent knees or straight legs. Over time, we're working towards the straight leg position. So after you have your grip and you've lifted up, you exhale, you fold again, and we'll stay for 5 breaths again. Okay, about the feet, this is very important. So we want to look in Dandasana and Paschimottanasana, we have an opportunity where the feet are both together here. And we want these to be flat as if you're standing on the floor. So if you notice that the outside of the foot is kind of coming like this, then you're going to drive these big toe mounds forward and square off just as if you were standing on the floor. As we progress through the primary series, we're about to see a lot of asanas that are just one leg at a time. And you're going to take these cues from these postures and replicate that when you only have one foot. So it's a neutral rotation, meaning we're not externally rotated in the hip or overly internally rotated in the hip. So you're finding neutral. We bring the toes back, the heel forward, and the big toe mound pushes forward just as if you were standing, grounding through on one leg. After 5 breaths in Paschimottanasana, inhale, you rise back up, exhale. And now begins the vinyasas, or the lift up, jumping back, chaturanga, up dog, and down dog. So we'll go over that and break that down in a later portion. But for now, we'll demonstrate inhale, you compress yourself, round the spine, lift. Exhale, step or jump back, lowering with control into chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, legs are active, collarbones are lifted. Exhale, downward facing dog. And again, we will circle back and we'll break all that down for you. Purvottanasana is next. So on an inhale, you'll come through from downward dog, have a seat. Okay, so this is one of the very few back bends we get in primary series, so we kind of want to get all we can out of it. The hands are going to set back behind the bottom about 6 or 12 inches or so. The midline stays zipped up, so don't allow the big toe mounds to separate. The quadriceps are engaged. The pelvis spills back. Just as a dog would tuck its tail, we're going to spill the pelvis back, but the heart remains lifted. And with the legs engaged, we're going to send the pubic bone up in about 45 degrees, internally spiraling through the legs to try to straighten them. And the arms have a little energetic inward spiral as well. And so we drop the head back, we gaze at the nose, and after 5 breaths, we'll come back down again. At this point in the practice, after each asana, we have a lift up and jump back, chaturanga, up dog and down dog. We're not going to do any more of those now since we're going to be featuring that in a separate video shortly. So we're moving right along to Ardha Baddha Padma Paschimottanasana. And so this is our half lotus posture, and we're going to take extra time to break this down so that you keep your knees safe when you're practicing. So the right leg goes first within primary series. And the first thing Erin's going to do is she's going to close the knee joint to protect it. So the heel comes back to her bottom, her sit bone. And then once the knee is fully closed, all the action of this half lotus pattern comes from the hip externally rotating. So in the beginning, you want to pull it in towards the midline. The heel's going towards the navel or the pubic bone. And there should be no pain. So if you run into pain along the way, you need to stop, pause, give this more time for the hip to sufficiently open and not force yourself into the posture so that you don't hurt your knee. So she's closed the knee, she's brought the heel into the midline. She's been doing this for quite a while. Her hips are open, and so the knee just relaxes down. In the beginning, if you're a bit stiff, your knee is probably going to float up like this, and you may not even be able to go on top of the quadricep like she's doing. So good modifications can be just keep it at the edge. There may be like a little bit of discomfort, but there should not be pain. And from here, you would just leave it and give it time. So with repetition and consistent practice, all of these patterns will open for you if you don't rush them. So when we rush them, we get frustrated and we set ourselves up for potential injury. So take your time, allow it to be what it is, and with consistent practice, it will change. If everything is open enough, the right arm sends behind the back, and you can twist a little bit to the right so that the right hand grabs the right foot. After you've got a hold of it, you'll square the chest back off. We sense where the sit bones are, and this is our aspect of mula, or mula bandha, so it's rooting down, and just like a plant, everything above the soil level is reaching for the sun, blooming up, and we keep this upward lifting energy as we reach towards the foot. Again, if hamstrings are tight, maybe it's the shin, maybe the left knee is bent, and so we go up, forward, and then down. And we're gazing at the foot, staying for 5 breaths. After 5 breaths, we rise back up again until the left arm is straight. Exhale there. And then we would lift up and jump back, moving through chaturanga, up dog and down dog. And then move over to the left side. The left side is exactly the same as the right. So we're going to go through it again, just give you a quick checklist. Closing the knee joint. Letting the knee fall out as we externally rotate in the hip. Heel comes into the midline. The ankle can be active, pointing. Over time, we're shooting for the outside of the foot to be in the hip crease. Left arm wraps behind the back. You grab the foot. If you've twisted to do that, then you square the chest back off. And then rooting down through the sit bones, active, extended leg, lift up. Grab the foot, forward and then down, looking towards the foot, breathing 5 times. And then inhale, lifting back up. Exhale there. And then we would move through another vinyasa again. So after you've taken your vinyasa, you come back down and have a seat. The next asana is Tiryang Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana. And we're going to bend the leg. We start with the right. Erin's going to demonstrate the left so that you can see it better. So she has bent the left leg. In the beginning, legs are generally tight for most of us when we show up for yoga. This will be a little bit easier if you'll take a block or a blanket, put it underneath your sit bones so that it elevates your hips and takes a little bit of pressure off of the top of the leg or your quadricep. The heel wants to be right by the hip, and so we don't want to sit on the heel, and we also don't want it way over to the side. That puts too much torque and strain on the knee, and we want to keep it safe by just having it right along the hip. There's a downward push through the foot of the bent leg, and so almost as if you were trying to push down into the mat to raise yourself up. The extended leg follows all the rules we talked about earlier in Paschimottanasana. So the quadricep is engaged. You know it's really doing that if you hyperextend through the knee and the heel is lifted. Not necessary, it's not anything you'll ever hear us cue, but it's just a way of knowing that your left or your extended leg is engaged. We want to find the big toe mound pushing forward again, just as if you were standing on the floor. And from this place of active legs, we root through the sit bone that's touching, or maybe both, lift the chest up, come forward, maybe you're able to grab the foot, maybe you're at the shin, and then exhale, forward fold, gazing towards the foot without strain in the shoulders or the neck. Breath is even, smooth, and just flowing back and forth. We stay for 5. And then afterwards, inhale back up until the arms are straight, chest is lifted, collarbones are free. Exhale here, and then we would lift up for another jump back vinyasa, and then do the other side.